35 years ago, the world fell in love with a smile, a red dress, a simple laugh, and a story about love in the most unexpected places turned Julia Roberts into a star forever. That film was Pretty Woman, and it became more than just a movie. It became a cultural moment. Fast forward to today, and the world is buzzing again. Why? Because Julia Roberts is stepping back into the shoes of Vivian Ward. And this time, the story is about second chances, about rediscovering love, and about one of Hollywood's greatest comebacks. Asterisk, when Pretty Woman hit theaters in 1990. No one expected it to change cinema history the way it did. It was a simple romantic comedy at first glance. A rich businessman, Edward Lewis, played by Richard Gere, and a free-spirited woman, Vivian Ward, who lived a life far different from his own. But what audiences discovered was something more powerful. They saw a fairy tale for grown-ups, a love story that crossed boundaries, and a film that carried heart, humor, and charm all in one. The movie became an instant success. Directed by Gary Marshall, Pretty Woman made over $400 million worldwide. But beyond the money, it made Julia Roberts a global star. She was only 22 when she played Vivian, but her energy, her warmth, her unforgettable laugh made her one of the most beloved actresses of her generation. People didn't just watch Vivian, they rooted for her. They wanted her to win, to find love, to find her place in the world. The film wasn't just about romance, though. It touched on themes of transformation, self-worth, and the idea that love could change everything. Viewers saw Vivian not as a cliché, but as a woman who had dreams, heart, and courage. She became a symbol of hope for people who felt unseen or underestimated. And that's why the movie is still remembered, quoted, and celebrated more than 3 decades later. Cultural impact came quickly. From fashion inspired by Julia's red gown to endless parodies in television shows, Pretty Woman became a reference point in pop culture. People still hum along to Roy Orbison's "Oh, Pretty Woman" the moment it plays, and the phrase Cinderella story has been tied to the movie ever since. Even critics who weren't sure what to expect admitted that the film struck a chord that went beyond Hollywood. It wasn't just a romantic comedy, it was a feel-good film that made people believe in love again. And then, of course, there was Julia Roberts herself. Pretty Woman didn't just make her famous, it made her an icon. Her performance won her a Golden Globe and earned her an Academy Award nomination. From that moment, she wasn't just another actress in Hollywood, she was the actress. The one everyone wanted to work with, the face people instantly recognized on magazine covers. The term America's sweetheart would follow her for decades. And it all started with Vivian Ward. But what truly made the movie unforgettable was its ending. The moment Edward climbs the fire escape with roses in hand and Vivian, glowing with joy, pulls him into her arms. It's one of the most famous finales in cinema history. It gave audiences the happily ever after they wanted, and it set the standard for romantic comedies for years to come. To this day, that closing scene is played, replayed, and even recreated in fan tributes around the world. The legacy of Pretty Woman has only grown stronger over time. For many, it was the film that introduced them to Julia Roberts' magic. For others, it was the ultimate fairy tale they kept returning to whenever they needed hope. And for Julia herself, it became the role that shaped her career, her image, and her future in Hollywood. Now, with Pretty Woman 2, a second chance on the horizon, the world isn't just looking back at the first film with nostalgia. They're asking questions. Where are Vivian and Edward now? What does love look like after 35 years? And most importantly, can Julia Roberts capture that same spark again? The answer is waiting. But before we look ahead, we must understand why Pretty Woman mattered so much in the first place. Because the story of Vivian Ward is more than just a romantic comedy from the past. It's a cultural milestone that continues to inspire new generations. And that's why the sequel isn't just another Hollywood cash grab. It's a chance to revisit a story that has lived in our hearts for decades. And to see what happens when life gives you one more shot at love. Asterisk Julia Roberts didn't just play. Vivian Ward in Pretty Woman, she became her. The young woman with the wide smile, the spark in her eyes, and the unshakable confidence was more than a character on screen. It was Julia stepping into the spotlight and never leaving. But her journey after that fairy tale wasn't as simple as walking off into the sunset. It was a climb, a test, and ultimately, a story of survival in an industry that doesn't always give second chances. After the explosion of fame from Pretty Woman, Roberts was suddenly everywhere. Directors wanted her. Magazines wanted her. Audiences couldn't get enough. But fame is heavy, and in the early 90s, she struggled under its weight. Her personal life became front-page news. Every relationship, every step outside her house, every film she chose or rejected was watched and judged. She wasn't just acting anymore, she was living inside a spotlight that refused to dim. And yet, even through the chaos, Julia's talent was undeniable. She became the queen of romantic comedies, with films like My Best Friend's Wedding and Notting Hill. These roles showed her natural charm, her humor, and her ability to make audiences laugh and cry in the same scene. People didn't just watch her characters, they saw themselves in her. They saw their fears, their hopes, their dreams, and their heartbreaks reflected in the way she delivered a line or wiped away a tear. But Julia wasn't satisfied with just being Hollywood's sweetheart. She wanted to prove she could carry more than romance on her shoulders. And in the year 2000, she did exactly that. Her role in Erin Brockovich transformed her career forever. Playing a single mother who takes on a giant corporation in a real-life legal battle, Julia brought grit, fire, and raw humanity to the screen. The performance won her an Academy Award for Best Actress, cementing her as more than just a rom-com star. She was a powerhouse. The Oscar changed everything. Suddenly, Julia wasn't just part of Hollywood, she was leading it. She became the highest-paid actress of her time, earning $20 million a film when no other actress had ever broken that barrier. She shattered glass ceilings in an industry that often undervalued women, and she did it with grace and strength. For young actresses watching, Julia wasn't just an icon, she was proof that they could demand more, expect more, and be more. But what makes Julia's journey truly unique isn't just the awards or the paychecks. It's the way she chose to step back at the height of her fame. While other stars fought to stay in the headlines, Julia turned her focus to Ward family. She married cinematographer Daniel Moder in 2002, had 3 children, and carefully selected projects that meant something to her. She didn't disappear, she evolved. She showed the world that you could be both a Hollywood legend and a devoted mother. That success didn't always mean chasing every role. Her return to acting in selective, meaningful projects reminded fans why they loved her in the first place. Whether it was in Eat, Pray, Love, where she explored self-discovery, or in thrillers like The Pelican Brief and later Homecoming, she showed her dramatic range. Julia always brought authenticity. Even when she was away from the spotlight, she never lost her magic. And that's why Pretty Woman to a Second Chance matters so much. Julia Roberts has already lived the life of someone who understands what it means to have a second chance. She's faced the ups and downs of fame. She's reinvented herself as an actress. She's found balance between her career and her personal life. Her journey mirrors the story of Vivian Ward in a way that feels almost poetic. Vivian once transformed from an outsider into someone who believed in herself. And Julia has done the same, not on screen, but in real life. As audiences prepare to see her return to the role that started it all, they aren't just excited to watch Vivian's next chapter. They're excited to watch Julia Roberts, the woman who defined an era, step back into the spotlight with all the wisdom, grace, and power she's earned over the years. This isn't just her comeback. It's her reminder to the world that once upon a time, she wasn't just America's sweetheart, she was, and still is, Hollywood royalty. Asterisk Hollywood has always loved sequels. But this isn't just another return to an old franchise. Pretty Woman 2, A Second Chance feels different. It isn't about chasing box office numbers or milking nostalgia. It's about timing, and right now, the timing couldn't be more perfect. Think about where we are as an audience. The world has changed. The fairy tales of the 1990s don't look the same in 2025. Back then, audiences wanted happy endings and love stories that swept them off their feet. Today, audiences want something deeper, They want honesty. They want second chances. And they want to see characters who reflect the lives they're living now. Vivian Ward, older and wiser, coming back after decades, doesn't just make sense, it feels necessary in the years since Pretty Woman. Hollywood has redefined love stories again and again, but very few have dared to ask the question, what happens after the happily ever after? Life isn't a 2-hour movie. Love changes, people grow apart, people make mistakes, and sometimes people come back together in unexpected ways. That's the promise of a second chance. It's not about reliving the past. It's about facing the present with courage. And then there's Julia Roberts herself. For years, fans have wondered if she would ever return to romantic comedies, the genre she defined. She's dabbled in drama, thrillers, and even television, but her absence from romance has left a hole. The truth is, no one delivers romance like Julia Roberts. No one can make audiences laugh, cry, and fall in love again in quite the same way. Her return now, at this stage in her career, isn't just exciting, it's groundbreaking. It sends a message that love stories aren't just for the young. They belong to everyone, at every stage of life, behind the scenes. This sequel is also a response to the cultural hunger for nostalgia done right. We live in an age of reboots and remakes, but many of them fail because they simply recycle the past without bringing anything new. Pretty Woman 2 is different. It's not about retelling the old story. It's about continuing it. It's about asking, what would Vivian Ward's life look like now? How has she grown? How has she changed? And what does love mean to her today? That's not nostalgia. That's evolution. It's also worth remembering that Pretty Woman wasn't just a movie. It was a cultural reset. It gave women a heroine who wasn't perfect, who wasn't polished, but who was real, funny, and full of heart. Today, with conversations about empowerment and representation louder than ever, Vivian's voice feels even more relevant. Her story returning in 2025 isn't just timely, it's symbolic. It's a reminder that women's stories don't end when the credits roll, and they certainly don't end at a certain age. So why now? Because the world is ready. Ready for a romance that reflects the truth of life. Ready for Julia Roberts to reclaim her crown. And ready to believe, once again, that love, even when it's messy, complicated, and unexpected, is always worth a second chance. Asterisk. Picture this. The glow of Beverly Hills at sunset. The city looks familiar yet different. The streets that once held Vivian Ward's laughter are now quieter, older, but filled with memories. A woman steps out of a boutique, her hair tied back, her eyes thoughtful. It's Vivian, no longer the carefree young woman we met in 1990, but someone who has lived, loved, lost, and learned. She's not a girl waiting to be rescued. She's a woman who knows who she is. The story begins not with a glass slipper or a limousine, but with reality. Vivian has built a life for herself. She's successful in her own way, grounded, but she carries the weight of choices in years gone by. There's no fairy tale bubble here, only a life that has seen joy and heartbreak. And then, one ordinary day, something shifts. A letter, a familiar face. Or maybe a chance encounter brings back echoes of the past. This is where the heart of a second chance begins. It's not just about rekindling romance. It's about revisiting who we once were and asking if love can survive time. Edward's presence, whether living, remembered, or passed on as a legacy, becomes the spark that reopens Vivian's heart. And for the first time in years, she dares to imagine that love might not be finished with her after all. But this sequel doesn't promise the same story we've already seen. It's not about recreating the iconic moments, the red dress, the fire escape, the shopping spree. It's about honoring them while moving forward. The film dares to ask, can people really change? Can two people who walked away from their fairy tale return to it decades later, not as who they were, but as who they've become? Visually, imagine this film drenched in contrasts. The glittering wealth of Beverly Hills paired with the quiet lived-in spaces where Vivian now spends her days, the echoes of her past, neon lights, laughter, silk gowns, contrasted with her present, grounded, simple, real. And at the center of it all, Julia Roberts, older, stronger, and more luminous than ever. Carrying a story that belongs as much to her as it does to Vivian, the themes of A Second Chance are universal: forgiveness, growth, and the courage to open your heart again when the world tells you it's too late. This isn't a Cinderella story anymore. This is a story about women who have lived full lives, about men who have faced regrets, and about the idea that love doesn't have an expiration date. And when Vivian finally stands at the crossroads between her past and her future, audiences will be reminded why they loved her in the first place. Not because she was rescued, but because she rescued herself. And maybe, just maybe, because love decided to meet her halfway one more time.